Number 1.
Alicia Markovich, age 15, was last seen on April 26, 1987 in Blairsville, Pennsylvania. Alicia's mother had custody of her in 1987, but she was visiting her father on Dunn Avenue in Blairsville when she vanished. Alicia reportedly had a heated discussion with her father about child support, though other accounts state that the disagreement was about Alicia's grades and choice of friends. According to her father, John Markovich, she stormed out. He called after her, hollering at her to be back by 8:00 p.m. Alicia has never been seen or heard from again. Police have stated they do not have any suspects, but have not ruled anyone out either. In 2001, Alicia's father received a letter postmarked in New Bedford, New Hampshire, which expressed remorse and instructed him to search along Connemore River. Police went to the residence listed on the return address, but the residents knew nothing about the letter and had never heard of Alicia. A search was conducted in the area specified, but nothing was found. Personally, I believe the letter was a hoax. A similar letter, also postmarked in New Hampshire, was received in Deborah Quimby's case. Alicia's father lived very close to a busy highway that was frequently traveled by truckers. It's been considered that Alicia may have walked to the highway and hitched a ride. Alicia's mother did not believe that Alicia would have been capable of making it on her own, and believes she met with foul play. Although both parents initially suspected the other of hiding her, this has been ruled out as a possibility. Alicia is an only child. At the time of her disappearance, she had just begun participating in track at school, and she enjoyed Agatha Christie books.
Number 2.
Celina Mays, age 12, disappeared from Willingboro, New Jersey on December 16, 1996. Celina was last seen at her home on Crestwood Drive the evening prior to her family noticing that she was missing. She lived with her father, Crescenzo C.J. Mays, her stepmother and an aunt. Her mother, Lynn Vitale, had died of a brain aneurysm 2 years prior. Her parents had not been married, and their relationship was troubled, with allegations of violence. Both had histories of drug abuse. On the day she was last seen, she attended church with her family and ate dinner at home. Prior to going to bed, she had a brief conversation with a cousin, in which she said thank you for everything. She'd also spoken with her half-brother on the phone. Suspecting that something was wrong, he asked her to press a button on the phone if she was unhappy living with her father, and he heard the tone of the button being pressed. He could hear Celina's father in the background yelling at her to get off the phone. The following morning, Celina's father found pillows arranged underneath her blanket, but Celina was gone. He reported her missing, but did not cooperate with the investigation. Celina was 9 months pregnant when she vanished, and her baby was due in just a couple weeks. The identity of her unborn child's father is not known, though she reportedly told her doctor that he was 16 years old. Celina left her prenatal medication behind, along with her purse. She also became eligible for a considerable payout from her mother's life insurance policy when she turned 18, but she has never claimed it. Celina's father and aunt, Sarita Smith, were heavily involved in Gospel of Christ Ministries, a Pentecostal church that came under fire in the 1990s for brainwashing its members. Celina's father was an accountant for the church, her aunt was the pastor. Celina was raised with strict religious beliefs, and was homeschooled. A lot of accusations have been set forth in Celina's disappearance, with her maternal relatives blaming her father's church and family, her paternal relatives blaming her mother's family, and her father insisting she left of her own accord, so the paternity test he demanded could not be done. Celina's aunt has stated that she believes disgruntled members of the church may have been involved. Although Celina told her doctor that the father of her baby was 16 and not a member of the church, some have speculated that she may have been abused and impregnated by one of her uncles. This uncle reportedly impregnated other female church members. In response to suggestions that C.J. Mays may have been the father of her baby, he stated he'd had a vasectomy prior to her conceiving. It's not known whether this has been verified. There have been unconfirmed sightings of her all over the country, but some turned out to be similar-looking girls, while others couldn't be located to verify their identities. Celina has 2 much younger sisters who didn't have the opportunity to know her. Both have spoken out in an attempt to locate her. They want to know what happened all those years ago. Their father is now deceased. Although Celina's disappearance has several aspects that would indicate she left voluntarily, it's very possible that things were staged to appear that way. If she had been impregnated by an adult against her will, he might have felt that this was the only way to conceal what he had done. At the same time, growing up with a strict religious family and having a baby at age 12 wouldn't have been a good combination, so I can see why she might have run away. I truly hope this is the case, and that she and her child are alive and well today.
Number 3.
Byron Page, age 17, was last seen in Los Angeles, California on January 29, 1992. His mother arrived home from work that afternoon, and Byron was not there. As the afternoon progressed into evening, she became concerned and started calling his friends. One of Byron's friends said that he'd seen Byron earlier that day at a local bus stop, at the intersection of Overhill and Slauson Streets. He told his friend that he was headed to a music and video store in West Hollywood, California, about 20 miles from home. This was a trip Byron made frequently. Staff at the video store did not recall seeing him that day, and nobody has claimed to have seen him since he was at the bus stop. Byron had not expressed any desire to leave of his own accord. On the day prior to his disappearance, he'd been practicing for his driving test with his mother, and was excited about getting his license. He was also an excellent student, and wanted to be a writer. Just after Byron's disappearance, his mother discovered multiple acceptance letters from colleges. Byron loved soccer, and collected comic books, which were left behind at home, along with money he had saved. On the night of his disappearance, his family reported him missing, but not much of an investigation was done. It's not clear whether he even got on the bus. I didn't find any articles about his disappearance in the Los Angeles Times, which is unfortunate. Random people who might have seen Byron that day wouldn't have even known to come forward if they didn't know he was missing. Instead, it was left up to the family to try to generate leads by running personal ads. The ad ran for months, but Byron Page remains missing 27 years later.
Number 4.
Roseanne Baker, age 40, disappeared from Whitesboro, Texas. She was last heard from by her grown children in late May or early June 1980. Her husband stated that she'd left their home on Burroughs Chapel Road in the middle of the night, without warning. Her purse, car and clothing were left at the residence. Some comments on websites suggest that Rose may have been a victim of domestic violence, and that she'd left home before for short periods of time. It's been said that police found a makeshift grave in the dirt basement of their home, but it contained no remains, and no evidence that there had ever been remains there. Some have considered the theory that Rose noticed the hole in the basement and left abruptly due to her suspicion that he planned to kill her, but there is no evidence that this occurred. It seems unlikely that she would have gone this long without contacting her children. Rose's then husband, who is now deceased, had a military career, and the family moved often. Therefore, I can see a possible scenario where Rose eventually did try to return or contact her children, but they were no longer living in Whitesboro. However, her husband claimed that he was contacted some time after her disappearance by a woman who said Rose was living in Australia and doing fine. It's hard to say what happened to Rose. It's certainly reasonable to suspect foul play, but it sounds like she had a good reason to leave, too. I hope the latter is the case, though I think it's unlikely that she fled, especially to Australia, with only the clothes on her back. My first inclination is that her husband concocted this phone call to prevent her loved ones from searching for her, though there are other possibilities. The call could have been an attempt by Rose to hide her actual whereabouts from her abuser, or it could have been a hoax. Sadly, it's not uncommon for families of the missing to receive calls of this sort.
Number 5.
Bertha Burke, age 29, vanished from Port Angeles, Washington on February 20, 1970. Bertha, known also as Louise, apparently left her home at 129 E 13th Street sometime after midnight, leaving her 3 children alone at home. Bertha was in the process of a divorce from Douglas Burke at the time, on the grounds of cruelty. The divorce wasn't finalized until several months after her disappearance. She and Douglas had married in 1958. Bertha was reportedly seeing another man in 1970, but her husband appears to be the main person of interest in her disappearance. Ground-penetrating radar was used on the Burke's property, as well as at the business address of Douglas Burke. The radar showed an abnormality, but a dig turned up nothing. Douglas Burke remarried after her disappearance, and his subsequent wife also died very young, at age 45, 10 years after they married. If she left after midnight, and the young children were left home alone, I'm guessing her husband was no longer living there at the time. I wonder where he was. I'm also curious as to whether the man she was seeing at the time was also married. This man has never been named publicly, and there's really been no focus on him as far as I can tell. One thing that strikes me as odd is something that is mentioned in an article. An image of the article can be found at the website's link listed below. The article's primary purpose is to announce a reward. It then references a prior reward offer that had been cancelled due to bounty hunters. I actually had to look up a definition of bounty hunter to be sure my idea of a bounty hunter was right. It pretty much was. It is someone who pursues criminals and fugitives in order to collect the reward money. Bertha Burke was neither a criminal nor a fugitive. Even if she was, what is the point of offering a reward for delivering a person to law enforcement, only to cancel it because people are looking for the person? Isn't that the whole point of offering a reward? All I can think of is that maybe they were getting too many false tips, but the term bounty hunter doesn't really suggest that. I'm not a huge believer in rewards being all that helpful in missing person cases in the first place, but it bothers me that they offered one, and appear to have not really wanted anyone to actually look for her. Bertha would be 79 this year, if still alive. I hope she can be found.